Hello, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Happy Monday. I have my screen here, so if I'm looking like I am not looking at the camera, I might want to move this real quick so it's not so distracting. Let's see. See if I can do that. Nope. Nope, it may be a little distracting. That's all right. Good morning, guys. I wanted to talk on Coffee with a Therapist about body image and beauty sickness in our culture and how that impacts people's mental health. Real quick, I want to make sure people understand this is not therapy or intended to substitute therapy. This is just my experiences, just sharing with you different things I've learned. And I always encourage that if you have something more specific or if you're struggling with something that is mental health related, please go to your local mental health professional and make sure you're dealing with that one-on-one, because it's not something we can talk about over social media or a video. However, I do think people can get some really good insight and they can get some education to help them connect the dots so that they can find the right mental health professional and kind of put words to some of their experiences. I think that's a big part of what we try to do in this space is how do we put words to experiences? Because a lot of people go on social media and they're struggling with different mental health concerns, but instead of seeking the real root of the problem, they're getting bombarded by messages telling them like, hey, if you just get this product, then you'll be happier, especially when it comes to body image. In fact, the higher level view of this is that with body image, without getting on too much of a soapbox, when you really think about it big picture, it is not in the interest of marketers who sell beauty products or anything related to beauty, weight loss, dieting, any of those different items. It is not in their best interest for people to have a healthy relationship with their bodies. In fact, it's in their best interest and it makes better money for them and they're able to advertise more successfully when people are in a space of fear and feeling like they're not enough. And so over time, it's interesting how you'll see in culture, things have shifted where we as a culture more and more struggle with body image and struggle with fears around not feeling like we're enough when it comes to what we look like. And this is across the board for both men and women. However, we have seen a trend that it tends to be more focused on women who they tend to objectify themselves. Hi, good morning, Sarah. I switched to YouTube. So I've been working on a few different projects and YouTube is easier to save the recordings. I have videos there already. And I think I will hopefully get less in the TikTok live stream feeds. There was a lot of people coming in and they didn't necessarily, they were just like spamming it. And so there were a lot of distractions. There was a lot of people just coming in and saying, hey, like flex your muscles or like do a backflip or, just random stuff. And it was actually really distracting too. There's other things that come into the purview. And so I was like, let me just do something a bit more relaxed, a bit more intimate where, if people know to come here over time, it can be a bit more personal. So I think they do a better job of just like kind of sifting out the other stuff. So, yeah, good morning. So when it comes to body image, kind of going back to that, like in our culture, we've been inundated with messages, and even I feel like it becomes more and more of a thing as we are exposed to social media, TV. Back in the day, it used to just be like magazines and TV, but think about nowadays, people are attached to their phones and they're constantly being exposed to these underlying messages that say, hey, you're supposed to look a certain way. And especially for women tend to get objectified a lot more than men do, as far as like advertisements being around how attractive they look, women making money off of the fact that they look a certain way, women having all the filters and using that as a way to get Instagram followers. And I mean, the list could go on, but it is so pervasive in our culture. So there were studies done, and a lot of the time there were a lot of humans that thought, well, smart women and smart men, they know better. Like they can look at these images and it's not going to impact them. However, the research shows that it doesn't matter, even if you know these images are fake, even if you know that it's just advertisement and all BS in its own right, our brain at a subconscious level still was picking up on these messages and still would compare ourselves to these people. And even women in graduate school programs, they did all these research studies. And one of the I guess it's silly and it's sad, but there was a professor who was talking about this. She was like, these results, like it's terrible. And people were asked in this, very unscientific research study of like, hey, would you rather be hit by a truck or be beautiful? And it wasn't that, the actual question itself was necessarily scientific, because they're like, yeah, like 70% of women said they'd rather be hit by a truck than to be overweight or whatever it was. And what was more interesting was when that professor shared that with those students, instead of them being horrified and thinking that that was terrible, they asked questions. They were like, how big is the bus? How fast is the bus going? Or the truck, how fast is this truck going? Is this like a 16-wheeler or, a smaller truck? And so it was interesting to see that these graduate students, they weren't appalled, they related to it. They were like, I can relate to this, and asking myself in my own head, would I prefer that or the other? And that just kind of shows you how much like this is a pervasive issue in our culture. I know this happens for men in other ways, so I don't want to leave men out. I know men can have like body dysmorphia when it comes to their muscles and how big they are and things like that. But men tend to have more pressure put on them to have status symbols, like certain cars, like having a Porsche, things like that. Like that's kind of how they try to attract their mates, is more by these status symbols and how much they make. Women in our culture, we are still told your worth is based on how beautiful you are. Your power comes from your beauty. And one of the things that the biggest issue with that is, I'm not anti-beauty. I'm not anti-people wearing makeup. Like I'm wearing makeup right now because I like the makeup that I'm wearing and it makes me feel like I enjoy that ritual in the morning. I'm not against beauty. What I am against is when women or men, their life becomes revolved around these messages of like, I have to look a certain way or I have to be a certain weight to be okay, to be good enough. And the saddest part is when we struggle with those fears and insecurities and having a negative body image, we spend our time and our energy thinking about losing weight or thinking about beauty products or ways we can like make ourselves look better, instead of putting that energy into other things that we care about and that are more important to us. We lose our creativity because, again, we are putting our energy into what we look like and how we appear to the world, instead of experiencing the world for ourselves and putting that into what we care about in the world. And so that is like the like unspoken issue that we see with like body image and mental health. I think a lot of people put way too much energy into what they look like to the world. And because of that, they're not able to do as much in the world and affect change and be the person that they were meant to be and feel good. Like they're not able to experience the world and be in touch with themselves, because again, if we're putting our energy into what do I look like to the world, we're essentially objectifying ourselves. And instead of experiencing the world, we're saying, how do I look to the world? How will other people objectify me? And accepting the objectification of other people. So I think when that word gets thrown around, a lot of people think, oh, men are the ones who are objectifying us, which they are. And it's because of culture. And it's not because they're bad. Like, it's not because they're actually men. Like, they are raised in a culture and taught to objectify women. Also, women objectify women and women objectify themselves. And so it's a issue of like, it's an issue of understanding that it's everybody objectifying, mostly women, because that is how it is. And I'm not, again, I know some people are going to be like, men struggle with body image too. And that is true. And it may be more around some issues of control and things like that. And because we do have some beauty sickness in male culture, but it is not as pervasive as it is for women. And if you think that's not the case, I just challenge you to just go through a week of your life and compare how many things you see where the focus is about how pretty a woman is versus the focus being about how pretty or attractive a guy is. See what you find, because unless you are very much in a very small piece of our culture, it's I don't know. It's kind of hard because once you see it, it's hard to unsee it because it's everywhere. And it's not to say, hey, you have to hate on it or hate on women that objectify themselves or even yourself for that struggle. But it's more, how do we understand this and catch ourselves so that we can start that change for ourselves? We can start saying, I can't control all the things going on in our culture, but what I can do is be one person in our culture that is slowly making a change. I can at least not objectify myself, and I can at least put myself out there and work really hard to not objectify other people. And you may say, like, what does that actually look like day to day? Well, for yourself, it's being more what we call body neutral, where instead of the focus being on like, I need to have this awesome body image and like love how I look every day. It's not even like the positive body image movement, because I think that also focuses too much on our bodies, but it's this idea of like, how do I focus less on my body and more about other parts of my life that I care about? So internally, it's shifting your focus, shifting your energy to other things in your life that you care about versus putting your energy into what do I look like to the world. The second piece is stop complimenting people based on their appearance. I mean, the underlying message, if we tell people, hey, like, you're so pretty, or you're so thin, or you're so this, it's telling people that that's where our focus is and that's what they need to like also focus on to get kudos and to be seen in this world or appreciated in this world. So especially little girls, and I know it sounds silly, but a lot of people, when they see a little girl, they're like, you're so beautiful, you're so this. And they don't do that to little boys. And so think about how like over time that just subconsciously sinks into people's psyche. Now you might slip up and do it, because I still at times will say things and I'm like, I just did it myself. But I think the goal is to work on like, how can I find other things to compliment them about? How can I say, hey, you look like you are just having a great time. Look how strong you are. Look how much you care about people. Look how like you just like make it more about other traits and how they seem like they're shining versus like, you are so pretty, or, you know, your dress is so pretty. And that's where I can struggle too. Like sometimes I compliment people on their outfits, but I try to do it more about like, I like what you chose. Like I like your style versus like your outfit itself is necessary for you to be great in this world. But even then, arguably, like if we could just find things to connect with people on that don't have to do with appearance, that's also a positive thing. The third thing that people don't think about is don't subscribe or put into your personal social media and consumption like things that are objectifying of women. So if there are Instagram accounts that like the main focus is beauty, or the main focus is sexual objectification of women or men, to just be real about that and to not follow that. I'm very intentional about following people of all different backgrounds and shapes and sizes. And that's really important for my brain, because I know subconsciously, like my brain, it will get into a bad space if all I'm following are people that look the same. And that goes across the board at like, you know, different backgrounds coming from different countries and different viewpoints. It's really important that we expose ourselves to diversity. And that, you know, to be real, most of the accounts that I follow have something to do with like mental health or something that I'm trying to learn. So I've been, you know, learning more about money and finances. And so I've been following some of those accounts. And so they tend to be focused on like education versus like what a person looks like. And again, I'm not hating on people that like fashion or things like that. But if you do, make sure you follow influencers that have different body types. So you're not just looking at fashion from like one specific body type, because it does impact our brains and we do compare as much as we'd like to not. So those are some 3 tangible things. You know, stop telling people they're beautiful, which again, it sounds so silly because when you say that, it's like, wow, but also don't say that they're ugly. That's also not what I'm saying. Find other ways to compliment them and talk about different things. Don't talk about diets and weight stuff with people. Like, I think across the board, the less that we can talk about that, the healthier our culture will be around body image and food and their relationships with their bodies. Don't objectify yourself, and make sure that you're exposing yourself to social media that doesn't objectify women and gives you more variety in what you're seeing. So you're not, again, your brain isn't constantly like, this is the way a human is supposed to look. So I hope that all makes sense. I know I feel like I kind of talked at you guys for about 15 minutes, but this is something that I see repeatedly in my work. And it's devastating to see how just very caring, passionate, intelligent humans can spend their time just losing their power. I mean, I think some people think beauty is power. I think it's losing, it's disempowering for us to think that the only thing that we bring into this world is what we look like, and that's the number one important thing for us to be okay and make an impact in this world. So I hope that, I know I'm kind of throwing a lot out there when it comes to body image and mental health, but if you have any specific questions, please let me know. One of the YouTube videos, or not YouTube, TED Talk videos that I would highly recommend is by Renee, and I'm going to probably butcher it, Engeln, Engeln. And she talks about beauty sickness and goes into depth, like the research that she's been doing around this. And it's amazing. I've shown it to almost all of my clients that really struggle with body image. It's called Beauty Sickness. It's really, really good. I talked about a few of the things that she discussed in this live today. So that would be another great resource. Eating in the Light of the Moon by Dr. Anita Johnston is another wonderful book and resource for healing your relationship with your body, food, all that good stuff. I'm sure there's other wonderful, amazing resources, but they are not at the tip of my tongue. I do talk about this briefly in my book, Beneath Your Bullshit, or Beneath Your BS. So that's another area where you can learn more about that and all these other different themes, I think, that, show up for people when they're building their self-worth around what they look like and these different cultural narratives that we buy into, because it's part of our culture. It's part of what we're constantly being told. So anywho, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Monday. And I will be back on here every Monday at 8 a.m. I'm going to try YouTube Live. We'll see if I need to mix that up. But as Sarah asked me earlier, I do think that this is a little bit better, and hopefully I can actually engage with those that are wanting to learn more about this topic versus getting like spammed with all this stuff, and have it be a bit more connecting. So anywho, if there's a specific topic you want me to talk about, please message me on Instagram. I don't think you can message me on YouTube, or leave something in the chat. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, Sarah, and to everybody else who is listening. And I will catch up with you guys next time. Let me see how to stop this now. Again, I'm so new. I'm like, I don't even know how to work this. There it is. All right, bye, y'all.